GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Hey everybody, this is Darcy DeMoss. You're listening to All Bets Are Off with Robbie Vegas.
What's up, rock soldiers, and welcome to the All Bets Are Off podcast once again. I'm your host, the Rockstar Robbie Vegas, and with me to my left in his Rockstar Robbie Vegas brand new t-shirt is Mr. Mike Burns.
ProWrestlingTees.com, shout out.
So Mike, welcome back. It hasn't been that long this time.
It really hasn't, and I'm stoked that it hasn't, because I just love doing this so much. I say it all the time on this podcast, but it's never a lie. I love coming on here and just talking horror.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. You're going to be on soon again because we're rolling into spooky season.
Yes, we are.
So even though we're kickstarting it right now, we have a lot of things to discuss. And we know last year I did like 6 weeks of Halloween.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to start soon.
Absolutely. And I'd love to come back even more than once for a couple of them. So, you know, I've got time and I've got movies. So.
Well, do you want to introduce what we're doing today?
Sure. I mean, I think this is actually an idea I came up with, too.
Yes.
I just texted you one day, and I'm just like, it's kind of a weird subgenre of horror that I enjoy. But it's, we both picked a few back-to-school themed horror movies. So basically just horror movies that are themed at schools. And, you know, what's some of the greatest ones? Like slashers. Like,
yes.
You're in school, teen slashers. So
yes.
I got a bunch of slashers to talk about tonight.
Dude. Most of my favorite horror movies are teen slashers. Like,
yeah.
I'm not going to lie. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just a thing. I don't know if it's nostalgia or what, but...
They're just fun. They're easy to consume.
Yes.
Like, they're just in and out. They're rarely longer than, you know, an hour and a half. Like, a lot of them are hour 10, hour 20. You know, you get some good gore, and, you know, sometimes you even get a hell of a story and some characters.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. And today we do have multiple sponsors of the show, and I want to talk about one of the new ones that you've been seeing in the link to the show notes and all that stuff is Anguished Allure magazine. So I need you guys to check them out. They're absolutely incredible. Everybody that works in this magazine, around this magazine, on this magazine are wonderful people. They featured the podcast. They featured me as a professional wrestler and a musician, and I can't thank them enough for it. So this is my thank you to them. They are a sponsor of the show from here on out, so I'll be reading a lot about them as we move forward. So I'm sure you remember when I was posting all about that stuff.
Absolutely. I love them. I have a few friends that have been models in that magazine and everything, and they're great photographers, great models, great people that run it. I know a bit about it and know a couple of the people too, and I agree. I mean, this is more than a sponsor. This is something that we actually are cool with. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, spooky, which we love.
Very spooky.
And one other sponsor before we get going is today's episode is brought to you by DB, which is a Scandinavian brand that makes backpacks and bags to help people on the move stay ready for anything. From the streets to the peaks, DB's gear is travel tested by some of the world's best athletes, adventurers, and creators. Over the past decade, DB has designed and developed, released, and refined the best bags in the market. With DB's patented hookup system, you're able to attach smaller products to your backpack, roller, or tote. Anybody who travels a lot, whether you're going to cons, whether you are an actor, whether you're a wrestler, you know that that's an important feature. So we're teaming up with DB exclusively to offer our listeners 10% off your next purchase by using the code POD10 or going to the link in our show notes. So DB, it's time to move on and time to get going. So Mike Burns.
Yes.
I waited purposely until we were recording to tell you about this.
All right.
I just got back from Monster Mania 46 in New Jersey. And
How
let me tell
much
you,
fun. How much fun was that?
Dude, I didn't want to come home.
Yeah, no.
And I miss it. I missed it when I drove away. And, you know, for us, that was a 6.5 hour drive.
Yeah.
And totally worth it. Flew by. I have no complaints. And I met some amazing, amazing people. And let me tell everybody, but you specifically, this story. So I met Matthew Lillard.
Okay.
And for the horror community, this is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
His line was 4 hours long. Let me tell you this. I get in line to a line that I thought was his. It was not his.
Oh, no.
Right. But we're the very last people in the line. He comes walking up to us, not in his line, and just hands my son his coffee. Here, hold this for me. And just starts talking to us. And we're talking for a few minutes, and I tell him he's my favorite actor of all time. And he says, "You have great taste in actors. I'll see you at my table." Fist bumps us and walks away. Well, we get into the room to find out that wasn't his line. His line was outside the hotel, wrapping around the hotel.
Yeah. He's one of those guests.
It was 97 degrees. As soon as we got to the end of the line, He sent somebody out to get us and take us to the front.
Yeah.
And we skipped the entire line. Why? Because he didn't want my son outside in the heat.
I've heard these stories. He's one of those actors that, like, he will look in his line and look for anybody that may be uncomfortable, anybody, a lot of people with disabilities. He's always looking out for them, and kids. Yeah, I've heard stories, that same exact thing, of him going in the line, seeing little kids being like their antsy or stuff, and just like being like, all right, come on up.
Yes.
And just like he's such a cool guy,
yes.
And regardless of what he charges for an autograph or a picture or something, I hear it's worth it.
Well, I'll tell you what, he wasn't the most expensive one there.
I know he wasn't. He's very fairly priced for the amount of movies he's in.
He is, absolutely. Yeah. And to be the one that everybody basically went for.
Yeah.
But I also met Danielle Harris and Bill Moseley.
They're so rad.
Oh, they were so much fun, so much fun. Yeah. And, I did speak to some of the guests about being on the show, but no spoilers. You guys will have to wait and see.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not telling them.
Yeah.
So, I say we get started with, because I could talk about Monster Mania for an hour. Because
Absolutely,
it was so great.
man. I've actually never done Monster Mania.
Oh, my God.
I've done bigger ones like Horror Hound, but,
Yeah.
like, Monster Mania is, like, my wish list one.
Mm-hmm.
I've done, like, the biggest ones I've done are Days of the Dead and Horror Hound, but Monster Mania is on that short list. They're, like, the next new one that the wife and I are going to go to.
Man,
So
I gotta tell you, like, the way that it was set up and the way that it was run and the amount of guests, and it was just fantastic. And Lauren Marie Taylor, who's been on the show, was there. CJ Graham, who's been on the show, was there.
CJ's great.
Oh, he was awesome. Michael Berryman, who's been on the show, was there. Mm-hmm. So I got to, go up and hang with them and just kind of thank them for doing the show and just kind of be a part of what was happening. Yeah. And it was really a cool experience for me
CJ's
because
super
of this.
cool. He remembers people, man.
Yes.
Like he remembered my wife and I when because we were at a screening that he was a guest at for Friday the 13th Part 6, where he plays Jason. So,
right.
Such a cool dude too.
For sure.
He talked to me just about I don't know, how to pay off my debt for like 10 minutes the last time I was hanging out with him. And then my wife was talking to his wife, and they're just rolling their eyes at what we're saying. And he's just a personable dude.
Yeah, he owns some casinos in Vegas, and he's a cool guy. And
he is a cool guy.
Lauren Marie's a good friend of mine, and she was signing next to Kane Hodder, so I met him. And,
And Kane's a great guy,
yeah,
too.
he was awesome. So all around great experience. I have no complaints.
That's so
no
cool.
complaints.
So cool. I'm excited to check it out. But yeah, let me not interrupt you again, and let's get into some back-to-school movies.
Well, I'm going to kick it to you.
Okay.
And you're going to start.
Awesome. Let's do this then. So I'm going to start with one that it's a fresh watch in my mind. I had a few friends over, a couple beers open, maybe some greens involved as well. And
you mean like broccoli and stuff?
Oh, sure, absolutely. But we enjoyed Pledge Night last night from 1988. Now, this is one that everybody can watch. It's streaming on Shudder, and if you don't have Shudder and you're listening to this right now, go get your free trial. Come on, they give you a week if you just go to their website. If you do a little digging, you can find a month free promo code somewhere.
Yeah.
It's so worth it. This one's so much fun. This is it's Pledge Night. It's basically, there's another movie that's very similar called Rush Week, and it's the same thing. It's like the pranks, it's the hazings, it's all that, and it's basically your run-of-the-mill slasher, but this one is filled with effects. It's filled with melty faces. It's filled with, there's like bugs in it. There's absolutely a ridiculous script that is hilarious. I have basically all my notes are just random quotes, and I'm realizing now that's not a great way to take notes because I don't want to be the Chris Farley sketch that's just like, this is funny.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
Right.
But like,
do you remember when you were in Pledge Night?
Yeah. It's exactly that. It's like, remember when they said so and so? This is awesome. But for real though, like in the beginning, some of the kills are like such spoilers too, but there's kills involving toilets, there's kills involving there's a chest burster type of kill. There is so much stuff. The plot doesn't really matter, but it was basically this thing to where somebody was killed like a year before or something. I wasn't paying attention too much in the beginning. To be honest, there were beers and greens involved, and I had like 5 friends over.
And again, your greens are broccoli.
Yeah, broccoli and stuff. But I mean, they're looking to like unleash the spirit of this guy that died or something, the fraternity and everything, and then things just run amok. There's just it's the craziest college where there's just graffiti everywhere. It's so weird. There's weird things tagged up everywhere. We found something that just said "Get out of Afghanistan" in the background. Like, we were reading, like, all the weird tags and stuff on the backs of walls all the time in, like, the bathrooms.
Was everybody who was watching this with you helping you make your notes?
Absolutely. Everybody was like, write that down, write this down, because I was like, I don't take notes for movies.
Yeah.
But it was because of the mind-altering things that I decided to throw some things down.
Right, of course.
Yeah, that's my biggest note on here, to get out of Afghanistan. Like. And, I mean, listen, there's a spine pole kill, there's the stomach alien style, there's a butthole kill.
Yes.
There is somebody.
I gotta say.
And that's the biggest spoiler I'm going to give with that, but there's much more to it.
This is a great movie. I'm glad it's on your list, because I actually truly love this movie.
Oh my God. It's so fun, isn't it?
Yes, and I almost substituted it for one of mine, but then I saw your Instagram, and I was like, I know why he's watching that, so I didn't do it.
Awesome.
Because I was like,
so cool.
This is one that I'm going to throw on there. But no, this is a great pick, and I don't want to talk too much more about it because you nailed it.
Because a lot of it is super effects heavy, and the effects are crazy. Even some of them that you're looking at the actors through, you're like, that is probably the most uncomfortable prosthetics. Yeah. They use some actual, like, food. Yeah. Just, like, straight up food in one scene, and I just, like, look at it, and I just, like, that guy's suffocating. They, like, pour certain food over his face, and then I'm just like, oh, that's real.
Well, mind you, this is 1988.
Yeah.
So practical effects. Which I prefer.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, seeing a movie like this.
All of this is practical.
Exactly.
All of this is amazing. And the thing is, like, it's nonstop, too. Mm-hmm. Like, you can get a bunch of friends together, or this is even one that you can watch by yourself, and it is nonstop entertaining. If you're going to get anything out of this, you're going to get so much entertainment. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you where to buy it if you want the Blu-ray. You go to Vinegar Syndrome's website, and they have a very cool Blu-ray with a reversible artwork and everything. A very big spoiler right on the front cover.
Right.
But, I don't know, there's not much context to it, too.
But also, though, most people who are going to buy this movie, this Blu-ray, have seen it.
Yeah, for sure.
And they love it, and that's why they're buying the Blu-ray.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because we don't have to own it. It's on Shudder.
And it is on Shudder, too. I mean, I got the Blu-ray and Shudder, so, I mean, of course, I have to have everything. But everybody should be. If you are interested in this episode and you're enjoying the horror that we do, you should be subscribing to Shudder.
They should probably sponsor us at this point.
They probably
because
should.
We talk about them all the time.
Yeah, that's not a sponsor either.
No,
that's the thing.
No.
Is like, we're just in love with them because they have everything that we want.
I would marry Shudder.
Yes. Absolutely.
I'm actually marrying Shudder tomorrow.
Okay, I'll back off then.
We're going down to the Justice of the Peace. And
for sure. So let me just, I'm just browsing my notes right now. There's an obvious thing that I feel like the director of American Psycho might have just taken. There was a line that just stuck out to me that just says, "Don't just stare at it, clean it up." And it's said in the same exact way as it's said in American Psycho. So I don't know. It's probably just a random thing that I just found in there that literally my ear perked up, and I'm just like, oh my God, that's odd.
It caught you though.
Yeah, it caught me really.
I mean, maybe it is. I mean, all these, horror directors and writers do pay homage to each other frequently. So, I mean, sure. I wouldn't be shocked if that's where it came from.
I wouldn't either. I don't know much about the director for American Psycho. I don't think so. I mean, it could be, couldn't be. But, yeah, all this stuff is just notes on how awesome this movie is. And just, like, individual lines that are said. And, I mean, there's bottles to the face where there's practical effects. There's just so much good.
Well, I gotta tell you, so since you went with 1988, then my first pick, I'm actually going to go with a newer movie, and I mean within the last few years movie, is Freaky with Vince Vaughn. And yes, I said Vince Vaughn. For people who are like, what the fuck? I'm telling you, this movie is fucking amazing. Like, I watched it for the first time, I was texting you about it, so maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
And right away, I was like, this is going on my list. Yeah. Because, I mean, the whole thing takes place at a high school. And it's hard to talk about without giving spoilers. But there's one thing that's, like, pretty obvious, so we can throw out there, is he changes bodies with a teenage girl. Mm-hmm. So now this killer is in the girl's body, and the girl is in the killer's body. Yeah,
hence, like, the title of A Play on Freaky Friday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, like, it was very well done. And yes, it's Vince Vaughn, but it's not an insanely funny horror comedy.
He plays it very straight.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
He's
yes,
the only one in there playing very straight.
yes, and it is a funny movie, quote unquote, but it's not a Vince Vaughn hilarious falling over laughing movie. It is a slasher.
Think like Dragged Across Concrete or some of his more recent more independent features he's done.
Yeah.
In very serious roles. Or
Yes.
like even though everybody hates it, and I'm one of them. Like he was in Psycho in '98, and he
Yes.
was in serious dramas
Yes.
in the '90s. So.
And I will say that the movie has its funny moments because you can't have a body switch like that
Yeah.
without. But that's kind of part of its charm. Is
very,
like
I was going to say charming.
Yes,
it's
the
very
tension
charming.
breakers
Yeah.
of like the comedy, but also the kill scenes and like that kind of stuff is like spot on. It is a slasher and it is a horror comedy per se, but I think it's more serious than people give it credit for.
It has heart.
It does.
It's a horror comedy, and it has a lot of heart. The script gives it a lot of heart. Yeah, just like you're saying. I think, surprisingly, when people go into this movie, they're going to be surprised that Vince Vaughn's pretty much the only person in it playing straight the entire time.
Yes.
And he's great. He is absolutely great in these roles. And, like,
Yep.
I've seen him in a ton of these. Like, another one, too, like, you've probably seen it, and a bunch of your wrestling listeners probably have, Fighting With My Family.
Yes,
He
yeah.
plays, like, a Michael Hayes-esque type of trainer.
Yep.
And, so, he's been doing a lot of good straight roles lately.
Yeah.
And he's been fantastic, and Freaky is no exception.
And I gotta say, it's weird coming from me to pick a movie that's so new, because kind of like when we were on with Ace last time, and he was like, "Oh, you gotta watch this movie from 2017." Fuck you, no, I don't. Like
Yeah.
that's how I am.
Yeah.
Like if it came out like after the Scream movies, I'm like, fuck off.
Dude, I'm such a hipster. It's a new movie. I bought it on VHS before I even saw it. And
Yeah.
and I just, when you watched it, I'm like, okay, well, and now I know he's doing it for the show. I don't even know if you told me you were doing it specifically for the show, but I watched it like a week later on VHS, and oh my god, it was just so much fun, man.
It is.
And then just having that little nostalgia of feeling like it's an actual kind of 80s slasher with the little
Yes.
VHS ambiance is always fun.
That had to be cool. And
It was really cool.
I remember you told me you had the VHS.
Yeah.
And I thought we were talking about different movies because I was like, no, dude, this came out like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then you sent me the picture,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was like, what?
Yeah, shout out to like Caddy or KD or I don't know how it's pronounced. It's KADI Video. Yeah, they did a custom VHS of
That's
it, and
sweet.
it's very cool, extremely playable, and it has the actual movie on it, and it sounds and looks just like it came out of the 80s.
I can imagine because the movie itself was a very 80s-esque.
Oh man, yeah, and the
movie.
thing is, there's no shortage of just like 80s feels. It's a slasher, so
Yeah.
it's going to when
Yeah.
the boom for slashers was 80s. You had like the proto slashers in the 70s, and then the 80s kicked it off, and then here we are, and it's a perfect complement to something like Pledge Night, even though taken very much seriously
Yeah.
and freaky.
Well, why don't you take over with your second choice?
Oh, okay, I will. This one is a very fun one. It was on Shudder before. I've seen it pop on and off Amazon Prime. It's called Cutting Class, another Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray release that I have.
Was just another ordinary, dull, and boring semester at Worley High.
Attention, faculty and students. This is Mr. Dante, your principal.
The classrooms were in disorder.
As of today, you're suspended.
Relationships were impossible.
Not until your grades improve.
And the teachers were insane. But this year was going to be different. Someone was going to teach a lesson no one would forget, ever.
This is from 1989, so another late 80s. I went very fun this time.
Well, I got to tell you, this actual copy that you're holding right here in front of me was the first thing I saw when I walked into Monster Mania.
Oh, that's
And
so cool.
I almost bought it.
Oh,
and I
man.
picked it up and was like, ooh, I should get this because we're doing
Yeah.
this episode.
You
And
should have
then-
gotten it.
And then I stopped and I was like, Mike probably is going to do this one. And I put it down.
Yeah. So this one is super fun, if only for it's one of Brad Pitt's very first roles. I think it's his first. It might be his first actual like film, like not a TV movie or
Oh, okay.
a TV show.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I could just be talking out of my ass on that one. But it also has Scream Queen Jill Schoelen stars in it, opposite of Brad Pitt. And you'd know her from things like Popcorn and like a lot of smaller, like more cult horror films that I'm sure this audience has definitely heard of. But she's honestly one of my favorite Scream Queens.
Yeah, I think if you listen to this show, you kind of do dig a little deeper. But also, if you don't, we make you.
Yeah, you should like just IMDb her name and her most popular titles. If you haven't heard of any of them, you should go watch them. She's a very good, very underrated, more indie scream queen because she never really got that big slasher feature. She was never in like the big, like how Daniel Harris was in Halloween 4 and 5 and then carried it on. She just did like these little movies, never got that boom superstar.
Yeah, she's kind of like a Tiffany Shepis.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Tiffany Shepis, Felissa Rose. They love the independent movies, and they're always out
and
there.
And we love them.
Adore them.
Yes.
Felissa
Rose,
and
friend of the
Tiffany
show.
Shepis are two of my favorite people to see at conventions when I see them. So,
there you go.
Yeah, this is also directed by Rospo Pallenberg, and like I said, late 80s, so it's very... This one doesn't feel like the 80s. It feels more like an early 90s one. You can definitely tell. The gore effects are awesome. You can tell it's independent because they're not cutting away on a lot of them. There is a version where there are cutaways in a lot of the scenes, but this is a complete unrated one. So basically, the setup is this dude at a high school just comes back, and the rumor is he was in a mental institution, but now he's back reintegrating in school. So now he tries to pick up friends by trying to tag along with this girl that he likes, who's played by Jill Sholin, and she's kind of nice to him, but obviously Brad Pitt's her boyfriend, and he's a complete asshole. He's a complete jock. Stereotypical.
Fucking Brad Pitt. Man.
Yeah, Brad, and of course he's the best looking guy in the movie because he's Brad Pitt, and he's the asshole character. But again, there are kills in this. There is blood. There's blood. There's a lot of blood. There's a lot of different weapons. This is a great slasher if you're into slashers. It's just like Pledge Night, except not as many ridiculousness scenes or set pieces. Mm-hmm. This one is taken a little more seriously, and you do have more of a closer group of characters. It focuses mostly on 4 to 5 people at a whole, rather than Pledge Night, where there's a whole fraternity of people and tons of people in and out, and it's kind of a chaotic movie.
Yeah.
This one's very easy to follow. And I mean, it also stars Ronnie Mcdowell, who's from Fright Night.
Who I love.
Oh my god, Ronnie such a classic actor.
I just met Chris Sarandon.
Oh my god, Chris Sarandon is awesome. I met him probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
He was a little odd.
He is odd.
He was a little odd, but I also comfortable odd.
Yeah, I loved that he signed my picture Jerry D.
Yeah.
And that just made my whole
Jerry
day.
Dandridge,
because I was everybody else was like, oh, Nightmare Before Christmas. And I was like, fuck that.
Yeah.
I do love Nightmare Before Christmas, but I was like, dude, no, you are Jerry Dandridge.
Yeah. I had him sign my Fright Night one, too.
Yeah.
So if I had a Fright Night 2 print at the time, I probably would have done that because I love that sequel.
I gotta say, Roddy McDowell is just... I can't say enough good about him.
Everything he's in.
Yeah.
Everything he's in, he's just and the thing is, the more he hams it up and chews up scenery, the better. Because he's just one of those actors that just you can't take your eyes off him when he's on screen, and he's just an old dude.
Yeah.
To us, he's just like an old dude, but he just has performances that are so fun, and they're always called for.
Is it weird too that I love his voice?
Yeah, no, he has one of those voices, and like
Vincent Price, you hear that
voice, because of the Fright Night type of horror hosting thing too. He had, and he kind of has that voice in a lot of his roles too, especially his later horror roles.
Yeah.
So Roddy McDowell, I mean, if anything, just to see him, a scream queen that maybe you don't see too often, and Brad Pitt in one of his early roles, y'all got to check this movie out.
Yeah.
I guarantee nobody's going to come out of this movie saying, I got nothing out of that. You're going to get something out of this movie if you watch it, even if you hate the plot or the story. You're going to get something out of effects, or even just to see these actors working together. You buy the Blu-ray, it's filled with special features, so you get everybody. The burning question of this movie is always, what was it like working with Brad Pitt? Did you see him possibly being as big as he is now? Of course, he stars are like, no, this was a job. It's a job to him. But still, it's a very, very, very cool thing for the movie itself and for the story and everything going on behind the scenes and on paper. So
I like it. It's a good pick. And like I said, the only reason I didn't buy it is because I had a feeling that this would be a movie that you picked. So
yeah, and it's crazy too, because all the director did, somehow he's an uncredited director for The Exorcist 2.
Okay.
I don't know if it's because it's such a terrible movie that he had his name removed, or he I don't know, but that's the only directing credit this guy has, and this movie is fun, and I just wish he did more slashers.
Slashers are fun.
Yeah, and judging by his Exorcist 2, he's not good at serious movies. I wish he would have done more. Maybe that was the nail in his casket or something.
Listen, maybe you're on the same train as me then, because like if it comes down to watching horror movies, 9 times out of 10 I'm picking a slasher.
Yeah,
like
especially if you want something easy to digest, and just even something in the background.
Right,
a slasher's perfect.
I mean, if
that's not even my favorite subgenre. No,
it's mine.
Yeah,
that's why I'm like,
it's Darcy's too. So I mean, like,
I knew that.
Most people love slashers, but it's, like I said, not my favorite subgenre, but it's always something I'll put on in the background.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just like over hauntings and possessions and like, things like that. I'm going to throw on a slasher.
Mm-hmm.
Just not that I don't like all horror, because I will watch everything.
Absolutely.
But, at least once.
Yeah,
I like to try everything once.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, nothing wrong with that, man. I mean, so here's the thing. Just final thing on cutting class. If you want the Blu-ray, go to Vinegar Syndrome. I'd say check Amazon Prime and Shudder. I've seen it on there. Can't confirm if it's on there right now. But Amazon Prime and Shudder, I have seen it on there. It's worth your time.
I may just pick it up just because. I should have just bought it anyways.
Yeah.
But
they have Black Friday sales, too. Everything's half off Black Friday on Vinegar Syndrome. So wait till the week of Black Friday. They'll have a whole weekend sale.
We're almost there now.
Yep, it's like $15, and you can get free shipping.
Well, listen, before we keep going, you know who I think would like this episode?
Who's that?
Our other sponsor, Death Comes Lifting.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, they built up their whole website and all their workout routines
on horror movies and music.
That's it.
Yep.
And that's us, Fitness for the Misfits. So if you're into, keeping yourself fit and a healthy lifestyle, but you love a good slasher, go to deathcomeslifting.com, and they have a Patreon page where you can join the Lifting Dead Army with a bunch of perks. So check them out, too. And now I'm going to give you my second movie. It's a movie that we both like. I just talked about one of the guys a minute ago. 1996, Scream.
Oh, man. What bad can you even say about it? There's a couple little nitpicks I have in this movie, but, like, that's what I'm saying.
I love it too much.
It's almost a perfect movie. And it's almost one of those things that I'm just like, what more can I say about this perfect movie? And the oddest thing to me, going back to something I said earlier, is this is a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
This is a 2-hour slasher. Usually slashers are just so easy to digest and everything, but since this one's such a classic, and you have those stars, and you have great acting, and you have the great directing of the, incomparable Wes Craven behind the camera, and Kevin Williamson's, like, lightning in a bottle script.
Yes. I gotta say, too, like, we talk about Scream a lot on this podcast, whether, it's horror movies or, like, just, it always seems to come up, but I have to say, like, it's because it is so great. And I did meet Matthew and Skeet, and they're both fantastic guys. And I literally walked up to Skeet and was like, dude, when I was a kid, I thought Billy Loomis was the coolest motherfucker on the planet.
Oh, boy.
And
did he get concerned?
No, he goes, dude, that's awesome. And I go, I know that sounds weird because he was a killer, but, like, when you were a kid, before you found out that Billy was the killer, you were like, this guy's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you were like, what?
He's one of those cool dudes that doesn't even, like, try to be cool.
Yes.
He's just like, he's one of those dudes that's he just has a presence.
Yes, and then he kept picking on me for being a wrestler and asked me if I was going to body slam him through the table.
Oh, boy.
And I was like, maybe.
You totally should have, man.
But he was really cool about it. But anyways, not to keep talking about Monster Mania, but I picked Scream because it is a popular movie, and I wanted our listeners who don't dig as deep to have movies that they're like, oh yeah, and just like be able to be on for the ride for a second. But also I feel like some of our listeners who are just in it for like our wrestling episodes or our music episodes who aren't super into horror movies, you'd be surprised the amount of them that are like, I've never seen Scream. And I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind?
Or there's like people on the other side of the coin that were just like, oh, I didn't watch it because it was this clean, like, for the masses slasher.
Yes.
And it's you say 90s and horror, a lot of people get, ugh.
True.
So, like, I don't know, go back and watch it again. This movie's hella good.
Scream saved the slasher. It gave new breath to the horror genre in the slasher field, I think.
Yeah.
I think it started to die out a little bit. People were getting sick of, like, 8 Friday the 13th, and I didn't. But, like, other people were starting to, like, get burned out on slashers. And I think Scream kind of reinvented them a little bit because it poked fun at the slasher in a serious way to where you were like, wow, this is a throwback, but they're calling out all the tropes that were like, oh, she's running up the stairs instead of out the front door.
Absolutely.
They're dying because they had sex. They're, they're doing drugs. So they're, underage drinking. They're going to die. Like, they poked fun at that. The Virgin Lives, like,
Yeah.
you know, but of course they break some of those rules.
They break all of those rules
Yeah.
on purpose.
On purpose,
Yeah.
right. And I mean,
sometimes the rules work out as they're supposed to, and sometimes you get to the end of it and you're just the end of whatever sequence you're watching, and you're just like, oh, flipped it on its head.
right. Sidney Prescott should not be going into Scream 5, but she is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
For sure.
And that's part of the charm of the original Scream, is they poke fun at the slasher genre while doing it justice.
Yeah.
And I love that, and I can still remember the first time I saw it because I was a little kid, and I was at a sleepover, and my friend's mom rented it because we weren't old enough to rent it, and I don't think she realized what she was renting for a bunch of 9-year-olds or 8-year-olds or however old we were. And that was it. Like, from that point on, I was like, this is so great. And to this day, I still feel like it's so great. And it's a comfort movie, and that's weird to say because, you know, it's a horror movie.
It's a complete comfort movie.
Yeah.
I've seen Scream probably isn't even my favorite Scream movie to put on in the background because I don't want to wear it out too much. But the thing is, I kind of love it so much that I don't think that can happen. But just to be safe, a lot of times, absolutely. So you have the Scream tattoo. I don't have one yet, but trust me, I'm covered. I will get one. But like my comfort movie in that series is Scream 3 because it's a wacky Scooby-Doo type of movie.
It really is.
Because I kind of want to preserve that feeling I get when I watch the first Scream. I always my go-to in that series is Part 3 because I'm like, it's not a good movie anyway, so who cares? Who cares if I get it?
But we like it.
Yeah, but we like it. But yeah, so and the thing is, I just want to give you a complete opposite differing opinion. How you had said it saved the slasher, or I think it put the final nail in the coffin for slashers, not because of itself, but because it was so good that everything it kind of spawned after, because people were like, oh, now they're marketable, now they're making money.
So like Urban Legends.
I think Urban Legends is one of the few great ones that came out.
Oh, I love the first one.
But I think a lot of this, like, I Know What You Did Last Summer, it's a fine movie. I have a lot of big nitpicks with it, but I think the sequel's really bad. I just think a lot of the things that, and like you even get into some of the movies I do actually like you got your Valentine and Lover's Lane, which are both like Valentine's Day slashers. They're very bad movies. I like them, but like Scream, because then everybody was just like, cool, I'm going to get an actor from TV, put their floating head on a poster, put a dumb title, one or two word title on the poster, and then now we're going to write a script. It was the same bullshit that they were doing with sequels in the 80s. Once they had a successful one,
so
they would be like, let's get one star that's recognizable, and then just like mishmash this thing together, put a poster before the script's even written. And it's like, there's my soapbox for what I thought about Scream. Scream, amazing. What it bloomed afterwards,
but
I thought it was pretty bad.
Counterpoint, same thing happened in the 80s after Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Where
that's why I say slashers aren't my favorite, because like
there's so many.
And the boom was just like so marketable back then that there were 2 a week coming out, and it was just flooded. And that's why I say it's not my favorite, because I think there are amazing slashers, but per capita, there's a bazillion slashers, and how many truly amazing movies are there within there? 10?
I guess that's kind of why I see your point and mine at the same time, because exactly what you said happened after Friday the 13th blew up. Yeah. And then everybody was like, I'm going to make slasher
let's
too.
throw the gore in. And then as soon as the MPAA came in the mid-80s, and they were like, you guys can't have all this gore in here. You need to cut all this out. Then they started going to the comedy angles and getting funny with it and getting all these one-liners because they all of a sudden couldn't use their gore, which was their crutch in the first place. So there's a lot of things. I'm a little critical, and I know you might get some hate mail. Forward the hate mail to MikeBurnsWho@gmail.com. All right, because
you heard
for
it
real,
here.
I'm not a huge slasher fan, and because of that, these are not Robbie's opinions. He loves slashers.
I do,
and I know people get offended when I kind of talk trash on him a little bit.
I also am very into the campy side of horror.
Yeah,
and to me, horror should be fun. So I don't know. Like when people take it too seriously, I'm kind of like, dude, fuck off. Horror's supposed to be a good time.
For sure.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
but then once you get a serious slasher, and it's like, if I can, get a little bit bougie and just like pretentious for a minute, like when you find a slasher that's also just a great film, like in general, I put Scream up with where most people will put like their Citizen Kanes or whatever, if they're like true, like, quote unquote true film fans that look down at horror. But yeah, that's like probably on the Mount Rushmore of horror, especially in the 90s, where I think there was great stuff, but you had to dig very, very deep to find something truly great in the 90s, because there was maybe one or two amazing movies a year.
Yeah.
It was very hard to,
I get it.
Yeah, a top 10 of the 90s is almost hard to put together.
I think Scream, like you said, is damn near perfect, and I put it in, like, when I think perfect movies, I say this all the time. I think of Jaws. I think of Back to the Future.
Yeah.
I do think of Scream.
Yeah.
I think it was damn near perfect, and I liked Wes Craven's little cameo in it, and I thought that the end, when Billy and Stu are, there and they're explaining why they're doing what they're doing, it takes you into that moment where you're just listening to him explain.
Yeah, and they're complete psychos.
Yes, and Stu, when Billy gets into, like, the realness of why he snapped, and Stu is kind of looking at him like, oh, fuck. Like, that just shows you how, like, deep into it he really was. You know what I mean? And, like, the other killer was even like, you're fucked. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't know, just that moment. If you haven't seen it, you'll know when you get to it.
Surprise, Sydney.
Oh, now, whoa.
What's the matter, Sydney? You look like you've seen a ghost.
Why are you doing this? It's all part of the game, Sydney.
It's called Guess How I'm Gonna Die!
Fuck you!
No. We already played that game, remember? You lost.
It's a fun game, Sydney. See, we ask you a question, and if you get it wrong, booga! You die.
You get it right, you die.
You're crazy, both of you.
Actually, we prefer the term psychotic.
We'll never get away with this.
Oh, no? Tell that to Cotton Weary. You wouldn't believe how easy he was to frame.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes. It was fun.
No!
Oh, where you going?
Why? Why did you kill my mother?
Why?
Why?
You hear that, Stu? I think she wants a motive. I don't really believe in motive, Sid. I mean, did Norman Bates have a motive?
No.
Did they ever really decide why Hannibal Lecter liked to eat people? Don't think so. You see, it's a lot scarier when there's no motive, Sid.
Check that out. I'm sorry if that's a spoiler. It came out in 1996. Fuck yourself.
And it's like the most popular horror movie of 1996, if not the 90s.
Yes.
So, I
Yes.
mean, you guys got to see it if you haven't. And if you have, and maybe, you're not a fan of 90s horror. I'm not a huge fan of 90s. Like, the 90s horror that was in theaters.
Yeah.
So, like, Scream, I adore. A lot of the stuff, like I said, as it sprouted.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you. Well,
they were all the same. They were all just, let's do what Scream did.
let me ask you this before we get into your third one, because you're up next. I want you to take a second and tell everybody about your new podcast that's going to be coming. I know it's not out yet, but tell them, because I want them to jump on your Instagram and start following so that when your episodes start dropping, they know.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we are going to have a podcast, and by we, I mean not Robbie and myself. I'll still be guesting on here, but we will also have you on, and the we in this one is going to be my wife Darcy and I.
Yes.
And we're going to do a little bit of copying you, but we're going to cut one of your big three out. I'm sure we'll talk about hard rock and heavy metal music as it comes up, but we're going to focus on pro wrestling and horror.
I like it.
Darcy loves a lot of, like, slashers and stuff that you love, so we have completely different tastes when it comes to horror.
Yeah.
So I'll be focusing on the independent stuff, she'll be focusing on a lot of the newer stuff coming out, and then, like, the classic.
That's a great
stuff.
combo.
And then same thing with wrestling. Like, she'll be doing a lot of the WWE, AEW stuff, and I'm just like, I've been obsessed with IWTV lately, and
I'm on there.
I know. Those were some of the first matches I watched. The first match I watched was a giant, I think it was like a tag team gauntlet. Maybe not a gauntlet, maybe it was just like a 4-way tag team match.
Okay.
And you just had to pin one person to win that type of match.
Yeah.
And you were the one pinned.
Yes. Yeah. I remember that match.
I was like, yes, this is the perfect first match for me to watch from you. But,
all right.
But yeah, so it's going to be called the From Parts Unknown podcast. And From Parts Unknown, equally horror and wrestling.
Absolutely.
So
now, and you have the Instagram already up.
We have the Instagram up. We have everything in motion. We're just waiting on a little equipment, and once I get the equipment, it'll probably be about a month or two of me figuring out and doing some trial runs. So we're about 2 to 3 months out.
So you'll be calling me saying, "How do I?"
Absolutely, you'll be getting some texts. But I will be very specific with what I need and not just say, how do I start a podcast? I promise you.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Now, your last movie is one that I have not seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to borrow it, if that's cool, since it's sitting here on the table.
Absolutely.
And so don't give me any crazy spoilers, but give me some good shit.
I'm not going to give anybody any crazy spoilers on this one because this is one that, like I was saying before, it is a slasher, but I truly believe that this is a good movie. It's still an 80s slasher, so you're still going to get a little cheese as, you did. This is a movie that is a standalone. It's never gotten a sequel. It takes place at like a private night school for women, and that said movie is 1981's Night School.
Wow.
Yep.
Weird. And it takes place at a night school.
Takes place at a night school,
Okay.
mostly.
When darkness descends on the city, something happens to the girls who attend night school.
Are there any like scream queens or anything that I would know? Or is this pretty...
No. And I think actually the actress that plays the main protagonist throughout most of the movie, I think it's an introducing role. So I think it's her first film role. And she's very good. Rachel Ward. It stars Rachel Ward and Leonard Mann. Okay. Leonard Mann is basically the main character in Ultimate Red Herring. So something that's not a spoiler that you kind of find out about a quarter way through the movie is like, this dude's a sleazebag and he's sleeping with the students.
Yeah.
So
you got to have that in night school for women.
Absolutely. Right. And he's just kind of, you kind of just get that vibe from him anyways. Mm-hmm. He's kind of written very well because he's not super sleazy, but he's not good to these women.
Gotcha.
So he's not over the top. Yeah. He's not like, but he's just a typical, just like, typical straight white male in a position of power type of thing.
Gotcha,
where like he's using his position of
power. So he's somebody we would consider a douche.
Yeah. And somebody's just lopping off these girls at this school, and they happen to be connected to him. And you find out that a few of these women, I can't remember if all, but definitely a handful of these women he's had relationships with that you find out at one point. And that's the biggest spoiler I'm going to give. But this is truly a fantastic movie. The director co-directed Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and wrote Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Or no, he co-wrote and directed Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Okay. Also, I think it's quite a spoof on the James Bond movies. He did Casino Royale. Directed that. So, like, this guy's got some cred.
Yeah.
It's written by a woman, too, which is awesome, at a night school. So, that's probably why the professor is written so well.
Yes.
I'm just putting that together in my head. I didn't even connect it. But, yeah, he's written very well, and I'm probably understanding now because Ruth Avergan, I don't know, Avergon, I'm terrible with names. It's her only writing credit, too.
Oh, really?
And I'm very surprised because this is really a well-written slasher, and it's taken very seriously. It takes place at like a collegiate type of night school, so it's, there's also what this dude is teaching with, there's some cannibalism and stuff involved in what he's teaching, and very dark-natured stuff in what he's teaching, and it also coincides with how the film's going. So you also have that kind of B-plot of him at the school, and then he's at his house, too. And he and this main character, who I said was introduced in this, they are the relationship you're following.
Okay.
Before you even find out he's having affairs with other students.
Okay.
So she is another one of those students. Absolutely.
I mean, like the cover of it.
And if you want to read this tagline for everybody, it is a hilariously fun tagline, and it's not at all indicative of what this movie kind of is, because it is very serious compared to this tagline.
I kind of like it. A is for apple, B is for bed, C is for co-ed, D is for dead.
Yes.
F is for failing to keep your head, a lesson in terror, night school.
Yes.
I love it already.
Yeah, it's a very fun movie. It's like a $13 to $15 Blu-ray buy if you find it on Amazon or Warner Archive. It's this is something you can probably find the DVD fairly cheap now too, since it is out on Blu-ray. This is something that everybody should see. I think this is just as good a movie as like a Scream or something. And to not spoil anything, the antagonist in it is a bit of a surprise.
Okay.
So it's very fun.
So I gotta say, like, a cover like this is something that walking through Blockbuster, I would have picked this up.
Yeah.
Like, not knowing anything about it. Because back in the day, when we used to go to Blockbuster to rent movies on Friday nights with your friends, I hadn't seen or heard of half the horror movies I was renting at the time. I would just walk through and be like, cool cover.
And we had the internet, but it would take us 5 to 10 minutes to even look up a movie.
Yeah.
Because it was dial-up back then. So yeah, that's how we found our movies, was looking at covers. And I
mean, honestly, I was probably the last person I knew to have a computer, so...
Yeah. I was the last person I knew to have, like, high-speed internet. So
yeah, right.
I was doing the dial-up for a long time. But yeah, man, this is a absolute fantastic movie. Again, starring Leonard Mann, who horror fans, if you dig deep enough, might know from The Humanoid and Silent Night, Deadly Night 3.
Really?
Better Watch Out, which also stars Bill Moseley.
I love Bill Moseley.
Yeah. Everybody's gotta love Bill Moseley.
Such a nice guy. I gotta say, too, when he signed the autograph for me, and he wrote, "Hope you like what you see," as he was writing it, in my head...
Said it? Did he say it?
No, I could hear him in my head going,
"Hope you like what you see." Gave you guys a little stereo right there. Yeah, that I remember... Oh, he was doing the dog dick quote on one of mine from Texas Chainsaw 2, because I had the giant fold-up original poster, and he said it as he was saying it. He goes, "Lick my plate, you dog dick!" And then Ken Foray was next to him, and he screamed it after Bill Moseley said it, and I'm like, oh my god, dude, this is so amazing.
I gotta tell you, like, I realized that he signed each 8x10 by whichever one you bought from that movie quote.
And he always does a great quote, and if you tell him you want a different one, he's cool enough to do that too. He's such an awesome person.
I don't know how we keep going off on these tangents.
I know, but they're great people, these people. And then there's, introducing Rachel Ward, who's also starred in The Final Terror. Not much genre work from her. A lot of TV, a lot of TV movies, TV episodes, but not much in the way of horror film. And then Drew...
I gotta say, I'm gonna cut you off real quick. Wasn't Rachel Ward, wasn't that the name of the girl from Boy Meets World who lived with Eric and Jack? I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Oh man,
the redhead, the tall redhead.
I was a fan of Boy Meets World. I don't know any names besides the main characters.
I'm just gonna say I think that was her name. But anyways, continue.
Wow, yeah. The more you know. And then you got Drew Schneider, who also plays a character, and you might know him from like Firestarter, War Games, Commando, Cruel Intentions. The guy's like a character actor.
Cool.
He's got like over 100. Like, you see this guy and you're like, I know him, but from where?
Yeah.
And then you look him up as I did. So yeah, innocent girls are being decapitated by a motorcycle killer at a night school. To boil it all down for this one, it is awesome. I will go to bat for this movie, and if you want to send any hate mail or say anything different to me, again, MikeBurnsWho@gmail.com, and I'm Mike Burns Who everywhere on the internet.
You are.
Everybody can find me.
I want to tell you, too, I know Chaz keeps wanting to do an episode with you, and I was going to have him here today, but he doesn't know what the fuck we're talking about.
Oh, man.
So this season for Halloween, we're going to sit down with him, and he's going to watch some shit with us.
Just tell him we'll do Halloween movies. Make it easy.
That's what I said.
Let's just do a couple Halloween movies.
I said we should start early and watch through the series and then rank them.
I agree. Come on, Chaz. We can't keep this this feud going on forever, man. These people need us on together.
I will say, though, that he is a fan of the Friday the 13th series, and he owns them all and has watched them all.
Well, you did the show with him, right?
Yeah.
When I was just a measly little listener.
Yes, you were just the listener. But you did send in your rankings with Darcy, though, so we got you guys on. So,
absolutely, yeah. So, he did great on it, too. I can't wait to get with him.
Because when he gets into it, he is insightful. He knows what he's talking about. So that's why I think, like, because he's still diving into horror.
And he's not like the horror fanatic like we are. And I love talking to people like, listen, man, I'm an anti-gatekeeper.
Yes.
I want to introduce everybody to horror. I want to show everybody everything I love. Yep. I'm not going to judge anybody for anything they haven't seen. I'm going to call myself out for being a hipster, for digging too deep and being too obsessive.
He calls you out in every episode. Anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and well-deserved for myself. But yeah, I mean, I want everybody to come in here and enjoy horror. So all of you, if you're just a wrestling fan, listening to this podcast, talk to me about these horror movies. Find me on the internet. If you're just like a heavy metal fan or something, or you don't get into the horror, you like the other 2/3 of what Robbie does here, I'm telling you, find me, find Robbie. Let's talk some horror. Let's introduce you guys to some movies.
And Chaz is still digging into it more and more. When I talk to him, he's like, I checked this out, I checked that out. So he's doing his own homework and his own research on his own time. So we're going to get him on with us.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun.
I took my last movie and I joined you in the 80s.
Yes.
Because, see how
I
it's
like how you did
backtracking?
some, that's why I didn't do some new things, because I knew you had 2 fairly new movies on your list, so I was just like, I'm staying in the 80s. I'm staying in slashers.
Isn't it funny that we consider Scream, like, new?
Contemporary,
So, but
new word.
Freaky was, like, new.
Yeah.
New. It is new.
25 years for Scream.
Yes.
This is the 25th anniversary this December.
That's insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're old.
Scream 5 in January, just
I know.
So, my third pick is actually Return to Horror High.
In 1982, Crippen High School was the scene of a series of brutal, savage murders. The homicidal maniac who committed the crimes was never captured. Now he's about to return.
Killer to the left! Killer to the right! Stand up! Sit down! Right!
Return to Horror High.
This movie is so cheesy, and it's so campy, and I wanted to throw it in there specifically also because our last guest, well, not our last guest, but one of our last interviews was Darcy DeMoss, and she has a small role in that movie.
She does.
It's also George Clooney's first movie.
Yes.
And
going with, like, the kind of superstardom I did. You did an early George Clooney.
Exactly.
I did an early Brad Pitt. And who was the 90s obsessed with? George Clooney
Pitt
and Brad Pitt.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this movie's fun, and I think that sometimes it catches flack, but it's a good movie, and it's something you can have fun with and just chill out and watch. And just, you don't have to have friends with you, but if you did, you guys would laugh hysterically because it's so ridiculous sometimes. But for the most part, you're just chilling out watching a slasher, and the whole thing is kind of a setup. Like, if you really like...
I don't really remember this movie, so I'm just like here listening to you talk. I just real quick, I'll just give my experience on this movie. I saw this once.
Oh, okay.
Probably like 10 or 12 years ago.
Gotcha.
It was early Netflix streaming. I don't remember much of it. I remember having a lot of fun and kind of just like cutting class. It was more so of a let's see this early George Clooney joint.
Right.
And like I was kind of just like looking at him. So I don't know that I was even paying attention much to the movie. I honestly can't remember much. I get that and Return of the Killer Tomatoes mixed up sometimes because I watch them in the same night and they're both Return 2 movies that don't have much to do with the originals.
Yeah. Well, let me say that this movie, I don't want to give away a lot of spoilers because it does fly under the radar and it's super easy to watch because it is streaming on our unofficial sponsor of Shudder. So I don't...
Is it streaming on Shudder?
I think it's still on Shudder, but it's also on Tubi.
Oh yeah,
so,
that's why I didn't want to watch it because it was with ads.
Oh, okay.
I usually watch the movies you do, and you did tell me you were doing this.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think it was like $8 to rent, or like $25 on Blu-ray. And I was just like, I don't want to spend $8 to rent it digitally or $25 just to watch it for a show because I don't even remember if I liked it. So I'd like to just watch it streaming one more time.
It is on Tubi. I thought it was also on Shudder, but I could be wrong. But it's definitely 100% on Tubi. And Tubi's a free service, so guys, like, check it out. Because this movie is just fun, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a slasher that takes place in a high school, but it will throw you a swerve here and there, and you'll be like, oh shit. And it's just fun. You're going to laugh. Yeah. You are going to laugh. I'm just telling it like it is. This isn't something you're going to sit and seriously be like, holy fuck, that was really cool.
For sure.
You're going to think it's campy and cheesy. But if you're like me, you like that.
It's perfect 80s, and it's funny because, like, I don't even think this fits in with 2 of the 80s movies I got, because I feel like Night School and Cutting Class both take themselves more seriously than, like, Pledge Night and Return to Horror High. So, like, I would put Pledge Night and Return to Horror High in the same thing, and, like, Night School and Scream in the same category, because they're both very serious, and, but, I can talk about Horror High, though, because I am, that's in my favorite subgenre, like how I said I'm not a huge fan of, slashers. Mm-hmm. I do love some slashers, but I'm a huge fan of 70s exploitation. Okay. 70s drive-in and exploitation movies, and that's exactly what Horror High is.
Yes.
And it has some, like, really gnarly, bubbly, like, trying to do camera tricks in it, but you see all the cuts, you see everything. Horror High is very fun, and it's basically just like the beginning, middle, and end of Toxic Avenger. It's a guy that an accident happens at Horror High, he turns disfigured and starts killing the people, the bullies and stuff. So it's very, very, very low budget. Very, very, very 70s. Very, very bad. But it is a so bad it's good movie. It's very fun. There's effects in it, like bubbly effects and like oozy effects, if I can remember. I found it in like a Grindhouse 15 film set from like a VHS rip onto DVD. So like the version I watched was awful, but it was so much fun too. And then it's 70s exploitation fun, and then you get to the 80s. Like they don't have anything to do with each other.
No, they don't.
The fact they both take place in a high school.
Right. So the 80s one, it does mention what happened, quote unquote, at Horror High, and that's about as far as it goes. It's like, I don't want to give too much of the plot away, but basically a film crew goes in to film Return to Horror High.
I think you said too much right there.
And that's that. Like,
yeah.
And from there, madness.
Yeah, it is not on Shudder, so you can watch it on Tubi with ads. I'm just so bougie though. I'll watch any, if there's TV that I want to see on Tubi with ads. I'm used to watching TV with ads. That's how TV was when we were growing up. We didn't have DVR and all this stuff and on demand and streaming, so you know, that's how we watch our stuff with commercials. I won't watch a movie with commercials.
Gotcha.
I will not. I won't go so far to illegally download it, but I will go so far as to bankrupt myself spending like $20 or $30 on a Blu-ray.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I need to watch it in a good quality if it's available. So.
I'll tell you this. The movie that almost made the cut for me, but I replaced it at the last second with Return to Horror High, was Class of '84.
Oh my god, I love that. Can I tell you the one that I was supposed to do? And it's one of Darcy's all-time favorites, and she's going to be so bummed that I didn't do it. Was Class of 1999. Oh, okay. The sequel to Class, the spiritual sequel to, which is funny because Class of 1999 has a sequel called Class of 1999 2.
Really?
Yes. So it's a very confusing series. But yeah, I almost did Class of 1999, and it's futuristic. It's robots are teachers and come into this crazy school where the students run amok, and it's basically just like free-for-all anarchy in the worst way possible. Yeah. And then I'll, leave you to talk about Class of 84.
Class of 84 was, well, first of all, Michael J. Fox is in it.
Yes.
And it's his first movie, I believe. This was before Back to the Future. And I mean, obviously, I think he was already doing like Family Ties or whatnot, but, or at least right around
I think it's his first movie. He did a lot of TV and possibly TV movies.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But this movie was really good. Ronnie Mcdowell's in it.
Yep. Oh my, I forgot about that. I haven't seen Class of 84. I need to watch the Joe Bob one.
Oh, it's
because I haven't seen it since like 5 years before Joe Bob did it.
This movie is very good, and it's kind of brutal.
It's very serious, too. It's not fun.
No, it's not.
This movie's not, and if, I'll throw out a trigger warning because there's...
I was just going to say the same thing.
Are there rape scenes in it? Or
like a brutal one.
Brutal, yeah. Like,
and I heard that it was even worse, but they cut it.
Yes.
But, that's the only, I kind of didn't put it on my list because of that scene.
Yeah.
Because it's a great movie.
Yeah.
But when that scene came, I was like, oh no.
And it's awful. Like,
and it lasts a long time.
These students are going out for revenge on this teacher for essentially him doing his job.
Yes.
And they're just awful, irredeemable people.
Yeah.
And you want to see them all dead in the worst ways.
Absolutely.
And it's very serious. It's not fun.
No,
this is not a fun slasher.
This is not a comedy.
Not Pledge Night. This is you have to be in a mood for this one
yes.
to want something a little brutal and take itself seriously. I agree. Class of 84 is awesome. Class of 1999 has that same vibe, but it has the cheese.
Yeah,
so it's out of place in the 90s, 99, if I can seamlessly segue into talking about mine. Wow. But it's just like...
And I gotta say, there's a ton of school-themed slashers.
There's so many. I said, I had a hard time doing Pledge Night. I couldn't figure out my third because I wanted to do 10 movies for my third. And I wanted to actually watch Freaky again and actually take notes because I was going to, tag team that with you.
Yeah.
But I figured, we're going to talk about it anyway, so I can do that regardless. So
there's, of course, movies floating around out there like All Cheerleaders Die.
Yes, that was another one Darcy wanted me to do. That was the next one I cut off. That was the next cut because I really wanted to...
Sorority Babes.
Yeah, the Slime Ball Bolorama or whatever. Ball, yep. And then you have even stuff like The House on Sorority Row and its remake, which I think is fun as hell. A lot of people hate it because
those are good.
That 2000s remake. Yeah. But then
Slumber Party Massacre 1 and 2, I would consider school slashers.
That's one Slumber Party Massacre is my all-time favorite slasher.
Okay.
And the only reason I didn't do it is because, like, I can't remember them being in the school, because it's at a summer party, except for the beginning.
Yeah, the beginning, too.
Yeah.
I was more so thinking they're high school kids.
Yeah, they're high school kids, and, like, they wouldn't have this slumber party if it wasn't for their high school friends,
right.
and, like, it has to do a lot with, like, high schoolers.
I love Slumber Party Massacre, 1 and 2.
I wanted the movies to actually take place at a school or a sorority or a fraternity.
Well, funny that you should say that, because I was going to say 2001 Maniacs because it takes place when these kids are going on spring break.
Oh, okay.
And then
that's
I was
more
like,
of a summer
no,
movie.
yeah, but that
would have gone on our summer movie episode.
But,
for sure. There's so many good back to school movies, and I'm gonna repeat it again. Let's talk about some school horror. Like, get at me on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm always running my mouth on there.
Maybe there's one that we didn't pick or that we didn't just
bring them up to
mention.
me. Like, talk to me about them, because I don't know everything.
We got to have some diehard listeners that are like, what about...
That's the thing. I want those hipsters to come at me and expand my knowledge. Like,
I'll do the voice that we use for
the Marks in the Basement, like, oh yeah, well, in 1971, there was a school slasher that took place in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, tell us.
The thing is, like, people get annoyed with that, but I want people to introduce me to stuff just as, like, I'm grateful that people aren't annoyed at me when I try to introduce them to stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just, let's keep that circle going of just, like, introducing. And it's so easy to find this stuff nowadays.
Yes.
With all the streaming and everything. Like I said, I'm going to say it again. We're not sponsored by them, but if you want to give me money to keep saying your name, Shudder, I will.
Yeah.
but yeah, you need Shudder. And go for the movies that you've never heard of. What I try to do when I go on there is I'll, like, pick an old movie I've never heard of that's got buzz that it's finally on there and being re-released or whatever, and then I'll pick a new Shudder original. Like,
I do the
every
same
other
thing,
time, I'll go new and then old.
Yeah. I do the same thing. I watch a lot of, like, very different stuff on Shudder, like probably things that I would never even like think would be in my wheelhouse, but I just want to like taste everything.
And a lot of their originals too have great runtimes. I'm noticing hour 15 minutes, hour 30 minutes. Some of them are an hour long, and they're great movies.
Absolutely,
so they're never waste of time to me.
I'll throw this out there because I just watched it last night. This is not a school horror, but I watched on Shudder a movie called The Reckoning, and I gotta say I was really impressed. I was very uncomfortable. I thought that it was sad, but I thought that it also was like, it made me angry. It's I would classify it as a revenge.
Man,
movie.
I love revenge movies.
And I don't want to give too much of the plot away, but it does have to do with witches. My God, like when I finished this movie, I felt so fucked up about it, but also like the ending was so satisfying that I kind of felt good at the same time. And I can't say enough good things about this movie, and I don't know why I put it on, because reading the description, I was like, yeah, it's really not in my wheelhouse. And then I threw it on and was like, this is fucking incredible.
Yeah, I've heard of it, and right now I'm very rudely on my phone trying to figure out how I've heard of it. I'm pretty sure a podcast I listened to covered it up very recently. But yeah, I need to see this. And the thing is, I don't even know anything about it because once a podcast comes in my headphones and they're reviewing a movie I hadn't seen, I'm really good at being able to zone out. Mm-hmm. And my mind's so shot too that even if I do hear some spoilers, I usually forget about it by the time I watch the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've heard buzz about this. People need to check it out. I haven't even heard of it. So.
Well, let me take the time to tell you guys that I'm going to be on a podcast coming up very soon. I don't know when it will air, but it is recording in September because I had a cryptid run-in on a wrestling trip that I was on, and the Confessionals podcast would like to have me on to tell the story. So I'm going to be on talking some paranormal stuff and some Sasquatch.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so be on the lookout for that. And also, if anybody is in the Buffalo area or comes to the Buffalo area or enjoys cons, I just heard that in 2022, the Nickel City Con is actually coming back in June of 2022, and we know that the con is upstairs of the convention center and the Horror Fest is in the basement, so I will be covering that as they email me information on guests and everything that's happening, and I will be there. I'll have my press pass, and I'll be setting up my equipment here and there, and you never know, I might stop you and ask you some questions, so come down to that when that takes place too.
That's awesome. I'm also going to plug somebody else that's probably going to be there, and that's Thursday Night Terrors, the monthly cult film series that we do here at the Amherst Theater, the University Plaza in Buffalo, New York. And yeah, they usually have a table set up. I haven't even asked Peter, who runs it, if he's going to be there, but we always have special screenings around then. and there's always a guest there that'll be there for a Q&A, to sign autographs, to intro the movie. So I don't even know if it's going to happen, but what I would say is maybe take a look at that guest list and think of some movies some of those guests are going to be in, because they might be popping up in a theater. And I'm talking about classic movies, 70s, 60s, 80s horror, sometimes 90s.
And they're very good at, I think that's such a cool thing, too, because a lot of us are too young to have seen those movies in theaters.
Yes.
So to get that chance, and I mean, maybe it's not for everybody, but I know for me, it's a big deal to see those movies in theaters because I'm a movie guy. Yeah. And I like that atmosphere. And, like, I went to the drive-in to see Jaws. Did I have to? No, I've seen Jaws a million times, but I wanted to see it on the drive-in big screen.
I've seen that at the drive-in, and Regal did it for an anniversary of it, too. And both times I saw it on the big screen, one of the jump scares, I think you know which one, when they go looking for somebody.
I know exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
So, it got me both times.
Yeah.
It got me both times. You need to see these classic movies on a big screen. I got to see my 3 all-time favorite movies on a big screen. I got to see Dead Alive and Texas Chainsaw Massacre on the big screen, thanks to Thursday Night Terrors. And then the Regal did like an anniversary thing for The Shining. And
I love when the Regal does that, and for people who aren't from Buffalo, that's just a big movie theater. I don't know if they're all over the place or not.
I think they're a big chain.
They are?
You either have an AMC or a Regal, as far as I know, in your town.
I know we have a lot of listeners from all over the place, so I don't want you to feel like you're like listening to just like a local thing here. But I did see Nightmare on Elm Street for their anniversary in theaters, and some of the jump scares. I've seen the movie.
I saw it too. Wasn't that like a $5 show too? Yeah, it was like a $5 ticket. That was a really cool thing. Around Halloween they do it.
Yes. Yeah. And how many times have we seen that movie?
Oh, a million times.
But I still jumped because you're in that atmosphere.
Every time,
and it's dark.
It's so crazy.
Plus
And the sound system too. I love seeing it with a great, sometimes they even have like, if there's a 5.1 mix out there for the movies, they'll put it on. Yeah. Sometimes you can tell it's just like, the mono track, which is really cool because it kind of likens you back to the 80s. It's just coming out the front speaker.
Right.
But, they're so cool when they do that. And Regal actually did a couple years ago, I remember, double features twice a week. They did like one on weekdays and one on weekends. And it was just like, I remember one was like them and King Kong.
I know what you're talking about.
The Dead Zone and Pet Cemetery was a double feature I got to see with them. Spooky season is just so much fun, man, isn't it?
To me, it's now.
Yeah. It starts in August for me.
Hey, Starbucks just released the pumpkin spice lattes today in all their fall flavors, and that tells me that it's Halloween.
I'd say about halfway through August. If I need to wear a hoodie at night, any night in that month, Halloween starts.
That's right. And it's not just us crazy people, it's all you listeners too. So, Mike, thank you for being here, man.
It's always a pleasure.
Oh, wow, that was really weird.
Oh, my God. We gotta end this. we're melding together.
We're starting to sync up. We're like women on the... Never mind.
Oh, boy.
So, again, thank you, man. This was a lot of fun, and you're going to be on very soon because we got the spooky season here.
For sure. I can't wait.
And, of course, we're going to try and nail down some more interviews because we're really racking up the spooky season. Well, not even just spooky season, the horror actor guests. Like, we're really piling them on at this point.
Yeah, Darcy DeMoss a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And horror, D fucking Schneider, man.
D. Snyder.
Strangeland and
Holliston.
Holliston. And the dude is like, I think he owns like Strangeland because he sells it on his site.
Yes.
Like he's like a director that owns his movie, which is so cool. And like you can just buy it directly from him, like signed by him.
Yeah, we're getting like heavy into interviews here. Of course, I mean that's basically what the podcast was revolving around, but now we have our own cast of characters with you and Chaz and me.
And can I tell your listeners something too? If you see a name on here that you don't recognize, and just because like they're a local wrestler or like somebody that was from Buffalo but now is doing the independent scene, or like, dude, those are some of my favorite interviews.
Really?
I don't remember their names a lot, but now when I see them on the independent circuit going to these shows and everything, I'm going to recognize their names. And like, I can't remember who, but it was like, I'm so far behind. It was like 6 episodes ago. A buddy of yours from Nickel City Wrestling that trains at Flower City as well was on, and it was one of the coolest like interviews I've ever had. Don't sleep on the people you don't know just because they're like local guys and don't really hit up the national scene.
You'd be surprised though who they rub elbows with.
I know that's the thing is like they have stories of like the big guys coming to their town, to their promotion. So it's like. They're the guy at that promotion, and then you got all these other bigger guys from around the thing,
from
around the country, and it's like they have these awesome, like very unique stories, and I love hearing those episodes. I'm a fan of the show too. I listen to the episodes. So.
And I appreciate that too. I really do, because like we do try and keep it interesting for everybody, because if our horror listeners don't like wrestling, I still like to throw in, like, every now and then I'll ask our wrestling guests about horror movies just to keep everybody interested.
Yeah. There's so much crossover too, and that's why we're doing a wrestling and horror podcast, because we're in love with both things and all of it too. Yeah. From WWE to No Peace Underground.
Yeah,
like from the top of the top to shitty. It's not even shitty. It's just like no ring wrestling. Right. You know, on a stage.
Right.
I love it all, and I'm talking like I love everything from It Chapter 2 to $500 movies that my buddies made down the street.
Yeah, and I'll tell you too, D. Schneider, spoiler alert if you didn't listen to this episode yet, it's just a quick quote: wrestling and horror and heavy metal go hand in hand. So chances are, if you're listening to the show, you at least have a little bit of an interest in all three.
That's why I love the show, man. That's why it's one of my favorite shows. It's three of my favorite things smashed into one. How am I going to fuck with that?
Well, then we're going to keep having you back.
For sure.
And when you and Chaz are on at the same time, I hope that you guys don't get in a fight live on the show.
No, we have to now. Somebody's going through this table.
Well, thank you for being here once again, man.
Thank you for having me again.
All right, listeners, we will catch you next week on the All Bets Are Off podcast.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.